Hi, George Durkee, Geography 63, creating a basic map. And this is a continuation of our week 4 final project set of videos. And this will be video 2, what I'm calling mise en place, which with my brilliant French accent is probably at least close. In any event, that's the concept of setting up or preparing your ingredients and tool and measuring cups and so on and so forth ahead of putting a meal together. And so that's what we're going to do here. I will show you how to take the geodatabase zip file that you will have downloaded from the Google Drive link I sent you. Unfortunately, I couldn't get it onto the Canvas files. I'm not sure why. It might just be too big. In any event, if there's problems downloading it, send me a note. But I've put a link in your Canvas assignment on how to get it. Anyway, you will have downloaded it. I will show you how to then uh, unzip it and transfer the geodatabase over to the folder you created for your ESRI assignment, the second one where you use the Northridge data, and we'll create a folder in that folder specifically for this project, Columbia College Map. And then we'll go on to demonstrate some of the tools I covered in the last video. My guess is there'll probably at least be a third video in this set, and I hope we can get it done by then. Now here's your Columbia College data, Geography 63 file, and it's a zip file. And inside of that is the geodatabase that we'll unzip. Now you can either unzip it wherever you downloaded it to, and that might actually be easier, but I'm gonna drag it over and then I'll unzip it. So I'm taking this onto my other screen, which you won't see, and you remember you set up, I hope, but it doesn't really matter. Set up a new folder that's either training or your Esri training folder. And then into that, put a subfolder, Columbia Project Map, or whatever you want to name it. And then I'll drag in the zip file. And it's a pretty big file. It might take a little bit. And I realize this might be kind of basic for some of you guys, but I've had a couple of students over the years who didn't know what a zip file was or how to unzip it. So taking no chances, let's do it. So in my case, I use ISARC or ISARC, and the Windows zip program, zip utility will be about the same. Anyway, I'll right click and I'll go down to ISARC and extract here. And basically, we want to extract it into this folder. So that's why you're going to extract it anywhere and then just pull that folder, the already extracted geodatabase, into the Esri project folder. Now you could, at this point, delete the zip file, but I think I'd hang on to it. I usually do until a project is finished in case somehow the original GDB gets corrupted. That's pretty rare, but not impossible. Or in some of the tools we're using, you just somehow mess things up so badly you want to start over. So hang on to the zip file, and then at the end of the class, you can go ahead and zap it. Next, open Pro and choose Map, and you get a dialog box on what to name it. So name it something like Columbia Campus Map, and then maybe put your initials there. And then you can either accept the default or navigate to where you created the folder we just did. And that'll be on your C drive, most likely. In my case, it's on my D drive. And so So navigate to that and then highlight Columbia Project Map, and you'll notice it comes up here under Name, and then click OK. Now I've already uh, created a project. Oh, and make sure create a folder for this project is also checked. So that'll give you a separate folder. And then, like I said, okay, just click OK. I'm going to cancel out of this because I've got a map already going. And so then your map will open up to the US map, usually might open to something else, and open your catalog and pin it into place here. Then, if you remember from week 2 or 3 uh, video lessons, you want to establish a folder connection to this project. It'll already have one to the highlighted project you just made, but you want one to the data you just pulled in. So to do that, right click and add folder connection in the folders drop down there, and then navigate to your Columbia project map and go OK. And that'll add it down here to the folders uh, folder under your project folders. And I can't remember if I mentioned it in our week 2 and 3 videos, but you might also want, if you've set up a GIS folder, GIS data folder on your C drive and you're doing a lot of GIS work, you probably want to link to that under favorites, just so your project folders are only kept for this project. But if there's a data folder you have that you want to use a lot, go ahead and set it up in your favorites so that's always available. And then you can always right click that and you can add to projects uh, or add to new projects, whichever. And I've got a number of drives, so you can see how I've just added stuff over time here, including the ESRI training folders among my favorites. Anyway, notice that this has your file geodatabase, and here is all of the data that's in it. So let's go ahead and add all of that as part of our mise en place and we'll add the current map. I used the shift, I highlighted the top one, uh, held down the shift key and went to the bottom one. That highlighted all of them, and then I'll add all of them to the current map. But you can also drag them over there, or a couple of different ways to do it. So this will just take a little bit of time because there's several files here. And notice how the little wheel in the lower right means that it's still loading data. And if you've got, say, 4 or 8 gig of RAM, it's going to take a while to load. So just relax and let it happen. And as I mentioned in the first video, we'll do what we can to reduce the amount of data in the file. So notice here it's got all of the roads for Tuolumne County. Here's the entire county outline with fill. And when we zoom in to the campus, we'll see the park horse. And so what we can do here to get to the campus, because the park horse is very local, so you right click that and you go to zoom to layer, and that takes us right in there. Okay, now let's do a couple more setup steps. And the first thing we'll do is you notice the tabs up here. It says map 1 now. You can actually change that, and it's just a little thing you can do to help identify multiple tabs. So let's just call this one Columbia map 2D, two-dimensional. So we'll do that. And then let's take a look at all of the data. Let's uncheck everything here. So in this data set, we've got Tuolumne County roads, all of the roads, the park horse, the Tuolumne County boundary, the Columbia campus parcels, all of them, and that's what we'll be editing. The Columbia campus multi-patch, and those are buildings, and then another building file that is derived from a shapefile, and then finally a DSM and a DEM. Now, remember in the contents pane over here on the left, the order that they appear here is the order that they'll be drawn. So you want to arrange this roughly in an order that you want the feature layers to show. Obviously, you don't want to cover up the roads with the whole county shapefile, whole county file. So in this case, it makes sense to have roads and park horse. I put the park horse up higher, and the Tuolumne boundary, but the building should probably go at the top. And we'll put the other building file up there. And we'll want the parcels above the road. Well, below the road. Yeah, right where it is then. Okay, let's just take a look at what we've got here. And remember, we've accepted for the moment the colors assigned when we brought the data in. So the buildings, the shapefile, are covering up the multi-patch. So let's undo that. And we'll just go with that for the moment. The other thing you'd want to do is create a group layer. And so what I do, especially for a project that has a whole bunch of steps in it, I create a scratch folder so that when you're doing a process and you generate a whole bunch of intermediate files, you want to get them out of the way at some point after you've finished that workflow. And so I just put stuff in the scratch folder that I don't need anymore, but I still have it available if something comes up where I do need. So for instance, we'll be clipping the Tuolumne County roads. And once we do that and just have the local roads, we can put that in the scratch folder, and we'll drag that down a little bit and then we'll turn it off, because with a folder, if you have it checked, everything under that that is also checked uh, becomes visible. So we'll just make sure that everything in the scratch folder isn't visible. Okay, so there's your main setup, and now let's start using some of the tools. Now remember that this is a rough draft of what we're aiming for. Uh, and so to get there, ideally what you want to do is write out a step-by-step of each tool you'll want to use in your project, and little subheadings here if there are more than one step involved, and where the tools are, especially in the early stages of you learning this stuff. And just being organized ahead of time, having, as I've said before, a vision of the final map you want. And as I've said, that'll change along the way. You may decide you want different data, you want to emphasize something differently, but start out with a plan and write it out. If it's at all complicated. So the first thing we're going to do is add a field to our building layer, and so that'll allow you to show a label for some of the buildings. And as I've said, just doing 5 buildings is good enough, and have them labeled. And also, while I'm here, let's take a look at what that looks like in 3D. So remember, these are the multi-patch, which I derived from LiDAR, which allows us to see it as a 3D building. So here's the 3D, and notice how, and I put it on top of the digital elevation hillshade. And so you can see all that in 3D, which is kind of cool. Uh, and so there's other things you can do with that, obviously. Uh, but in 3D, it takes quite a while to build. And so even in 2D, these multi-patch might take a little while for it to load. So if that's happening, go ahead and use the CC Building SHP. That's only one dimensional and should load pretty quick if you're at all having problems. Okay, now as our first tool, let's add a field. So all you got to do is you go to the feature layer that you want to change, and you go up here to data design, and then you have several other choices, but we're going to want to do fields. And that shows as a new tab, and all you got to do, click here to add new field. And so we're going to call it building name. And we want, double click here to get the drop down. We want to make it text. Obviously, you also have other uh, possibilities here. You can put a date field, date only, time only, short integer, long integer, depending on whether you want a decimal point or whatever. Anyway, other possibilities. And it gives you 255 characters, which is an awful lot. You could write a few paragraphs that way, which is sometimes useful, obviously. But we don't want that. We just want about, let's say, 50 characters. Now, this is kind of critical here, and it's where sometimes folks lose it, or they'll create the field and then uh, end the edit session. But you have to remember to save. You can also discard it if you decide you did it wrong or it doesn't fit or something like that. But just make sure you do one or the other, or you'll get to the feature and it won't have your new field. So let's save. And now let's add a couple of building names, or actually just one, I think. I don't want to get too carried away. Move the map a little bit. Well, how about Manzanita as the simplest? So for that, we want to go into Edit, and we want to open an editing session. You'll remember from weeks 2 and 3. Then we want to select the building that we want to change. There's a couple of ways to do this. We could have done the drop down and gone to attributes, and that might be the easiest, but I'm going to do it a slightly different way here. And so we're going to select, say, the Manzanita building, and then we're going to choose attributes, and the specific record for that building comes up. And then down here, you just fill in Manzanita. I don't get down on campus. I hope that's the Manzanita building. And then hit enter. So the other way to do it is to bring up the whole data set, all of the attribute table. With a large data set, it's a little harder to do. But if you select a building, the library, for instance, um, you'll notice that we have a really big data set. We've got 378 uh, uh, separate records. And then you just want to show the selected uh, records. And so you go down here, and that comes up with the selected record. And then you slide over, and we also have it over here, you'll notice. So you can enter it in here, and we'll put library. Okay, so there's two of them, and now we can get rid of that tab. And now we save, and we exit edit mode. And notice it's still selected, so we want to clear. And now let's go over to map and see if everything worked. Let's go over to labeling and choose the label field. Remember its building name, and then activate the labels. And it's pretty faint. It says Manzanita. So at the moment, it's centered on the uh, the building. So you're going to want to fix that so it comes out above, and obviously a typeface that shows. Okay, let's clear that. And I am moving along here because some of this stuff I'm hopeful you remember from last time how to customize your labels and so on and so forth. Okay. Oh, and also save. You should have from weeks 2 and 3 uh, remembered to set up your project such that it saves automatically, uh, but every 5 minutes as a backup save, but you want to actively save as you go along. Okay, next, let's edit the parcel layer, and we'll bring that up, zoom out just a little bit. And what I mentioned we want to do is we want to clean it up a little bit so that we have just one polygon boundary of the campus that we want to focus on the main campus. So when I got this original parcel layer from the county, it includes everything that's got a field for Columbia as the owner. So we want to get rid of all this stuff here. And to do that, we go into edit mode, start an edit session, and I'm holding down the shift key here. Oh, I'm sorry, select. Holding down the shift key to select all of these little parcels here. And this little one here. And then just delete. And it gives us another chance. So we get rid of them. And I didn't do this the first time, but let's get rid of that one. That's kind of weird. Let's just have a clean shapefile boundary. And let's save all that. That's roughly what we're going to want to do. Now what we have here is a bunch of polygons, and we're just going to want one polygon. So what we can do here, and I'm holding the shift key down, or the C key down here just to maneuver that, and we'll select everything here, and then we'll merge it. So there's a few ways to select, and you can either go through one by one and click on each one, uh, but you might miss something here. This is kind of a weird shape. Uh, so what you can also do is go to the feature layer itself and go to selection and then select all. And if you're working with other data too, as we are here, you might want to make this the only selectable layer for the moment, because if you say draw a rectangle or you select something inside, it can also select, say, the park horse or something like that, and you just want to work with this particular feature layer. So select visible features, and so that selects everything. Now we're going to merge. We're still in edit mode, and we're going to go over here to the merge tool. And lock that in place with the pin. Now what's going to happen here is that everything will merge into the first polygon. And for our purposes, it doesn't matter. We just want one whole polygon. But there might be a case where you want a different polygon to be sort of the lead poly, and you can choose a different one to do that. Notice that it says preserve here. So we're preserving the data in number one here, and we hit merge. And there we go. We have one solid boundary polygon, which is what I showed in the first map, although I got rid of this little section here for an even cleaner look. And finally, one more tiny little glitch here. Notice this weird little indentation here. So I'm going to close in on that. We're going to clear our selection and see, you've got this little indent here. I have no idea what that's all about. So once more, we're going to select and we're going to choose the reshape tool. And then you click once on the line here and double click on the other side and it gets rid of it. I probably just did something illegal for the parcel, but there we go, we fixed it. Okay, let's zoom out a little here. We clear the selection, holding down the C key and center it a little bit, and we can get rid of the modify features. We save, and we get out of edit mode. And I think that'll do it for this video. In the next one, we'll work with the roads. We'll clip roads and we'll clip the DEM raster. Then we'll move some of those extra ones to Scratch and then do the slide tool. So I'm hopeful we can finish this in one more video. So see you in that. Thanks.